All right. Let's see here. Hello, everyone. Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Oh man, I feel like it's been a while. There's so much going on in the world today. And I feel like today's soul chat with this beautiful goddess is so timely. And so, first of all, I would like to welcome you, Emily. Thank you for joining me this afternoon, morning. It's like mid-morning kind of thing here, but thank you for joining me.
So for me, it's 6 p.m.
Yes.
But for you, it's the morning yet. Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you so much for letting me share this with you.
Where are you connecting from so that people know?
So my accent is English. However, I'm actually living in Scotland at the moment.
Gotcha. Hence the huge time difference. I love this.
Yeah, I'm in the UK.
So let's start with this, Emily. Tell us who you are, especially for people who don't know who you are.
Oh, there's a $1,000 question.
Yeah.
So I started out as a holistic practitioner 1,000 lifetimes ago, and ended up working as an intimacy coach almost by accident to begin with. Actually, what essentially happened was, when I was working with people to help them with their businesses or help them with their holistic practices they were setting up, because I was training them in the modalities themselves, what came about was that the answer always laid in their intimacy, in their communication, in who they were being in a relationship, that kind of thing. Because what I found is that money, sex, power, they all live together. And then as a separate coordinate, so whether I wanted to go down that road or not, that was where I was led. And in helping people with that piece, I was then, their lives then shifted. So what then happened as a separate piece is I started working with the goddess Lilith. And so then you're blending these two pieces. And that's now what I do. So whether I'm working with individuals or whether I'm working with couples, that's ultimately what I do. And it has this divine feminine coordinate to it, because Lilith has been silenced for a long time and has a very strong energy when she wants something moving and happening in the world. And so now what I do has all these other strands, because she's like, right, we need to give people the platform, we need to let them speak, we need to get their message out. And sometimes I feel like I'm just on the payroll. It's like being self-employed and also having a boss. It's quite an interesting way of doing it, but it works.
Yeah, I love that. Sometimes it does feel that way, yes. So I'm curious, and I'm sure those of you who are not familiar with Lilith, you want to know. So who is Lilith? Let's go there.
So biblically and mythologically, she's Adam's first wife. So what happens there is that everybody, or most people, know the story of Adam and Eve, but not many people know the story of Adam and Lilith, because it's been written out. So the differences in the story ultimately are that Lilith and Adam were born of the same mud, whereas Adam and Eve was born of the rib. And I was actually speaking to somebody today for my own podcast who was of Hebrew and Jewish descent, and was explaining to me about the language of the word and what it meant and how that had come about. And so, which I found fascinating in itself. So what happens is she then is born out of the same mud and therefore wants the same equality. She wants autonomy in the space, which of course, as you can imagine, went down very, very well with Adam. And in principle, there's a power struggle. So after the power struggle, depending on which version you read, she either leaves or is exiled from Eden. And then it's been rewritten, and now you have Adam and Eve. So Eve's born of the rib, therefore that subservience is built into the narrative. And that's the story everybody knows. And then depending on what you read, she's then either demonized or there's not much good stuff to say about her. And the reason for that is they needed to make it that you would never want to express your own opinion and go your own way and have that sovereignty. So, if she ends up dead and all kinds of in a bad space, then there's your answer. However, what she actually does is she's the guardian of that crossroads. It's like, what's the powerful choice when you're making a choice in the world? And it's not power over, but it's the autonomy of that power, and what's the powerful choice for everybody concerned. She also looks after creativity. She looks after communication. She looks after sexual expression. And when it comes to the creativity piece, that can be creating life. But she's been documented to have dreams with people to come into the dreams of, let me get the direction right. She comes into the dreams of artists at a time when they are just about to begin this prolific period of art. So, that kind of when they get into the tunnel and they create. And I once had an artist friend of mine describe it to me, and he said it's like the narrative we've been given about creativity is that for art we suffer. And she comes along just before to offer us an alternative, as if to say, if you allow me to be part of the conduit, there isn't as much suffering. It's not a suffering process. My business partner is very big on the idea of letting go of that narrative, and how do you create from joy? So that's part of what she does as well. And she turns up in people's lives. People call it the whisper of Lilith. She turns up when you're ready to step into your power in whatever way. And she presents you the crossroads and is like, which way are you going to go? And so what I do is I guide women through or couples through that process of what's the powerful choice, and therefore what are the ripples. And then my other tools then become, now that you've declared that you're going to go left instead of right, or yes instead of no, and you said yes to the universe, of course everything that's in your subconscious that sits in the space that goes, oh, here's why we can't have that, here's why I can't be that, here's why it's not a good idea, here's why I'm best off safe, comes to the surface. And that could be from once upon a lifetime, that could be genetically inherited, that could be all sorts of places. And then we just move all of that out of the way in using lots of different ways of doing it, and watch people just step into that power. And it's such a beautiful journey to watch, and such a beautiful thing to observe. And the intimacy that grows and the communication that grows in people's relationships as a result is just amazing. So I can't think I'll ever get bored of working with Lilith.
So what I'm hearing, or at least what I'm feeling when it comes to Lilith, I'm not familiar with working with her, because of course I have my own team that I work with.
You do.
But the signature that is coming in is just raw power. And she also reminds me of the Morrigan, the God, goddess Morrigan, like in
Morgana, yes.
Yeah, maybe it's the crossroads choices, but the energy is just, they kind of remind me of each other, So
it has that about it, yes.
So how did Lilith come to you?
About 10 years ago now, 10-ish years ago, I saw a television show. And the television show, I saw a character, and I didn't know what I was watching. I didn't know what I was looking at. I didn't realize it was Lilith, because this character was playing a dominatrix. And to be clear, she wasn't a victim of the sex trade. It was a powerful woman standing in her power and in her sexiness and in her sexuality. And so she walked into the TV show, into the first scene of the show, and she was wearing nothing but Louis Vuitton shoes and diamond earrings. She sashayed in, shoulders back, head high, hips forward. I thought, wow, what am I looking at? Who is she? And what's fascinating for me is I then couldn't stop watching her. I couldn't stop getting involved. It was just like hypnotic. And then I went away and researched more and found that this was portraying the archetype of Lilith. And she's called, in the TV show, they refer to her as the woman, and it's a salute to the one of a kind. And when I work with people, I see the men, or the lovers, let's be more general. I see the lovers of the women who have stepped up to be the woman in their own lives, whatever that looks like to them. And they have the same reaction, which is, wow, who is she and where has she been all my life? They salute her, they really revere it. And so that's how I saw her originally. And then she started to come, once I started to realize it was Lilith, she started to come through in meditation. I started researching her, and it just became a process. And now, as I say, I'm basically on the payroll, and she's found someone who will pull that energy, bring that forward. So.
Yeah, I love that. And I know you have a podcast called Lilith Speaks. And your first one is like, what is your story? What is your yes story? Which is an invitation for you to really tune in and then speak from that place of power. So I love how you incorporate the essence of Lilith in supporting your clients to step into their power. Yeah.
Who is Lilith to them, or who is the woman to them? So the first week I ever worked with anyone, their first piece of homework is go away and watch that show. And in all the years I've done it, I've only ever had one woman come back and go, I didn't get why you sent me this. Everybody else comes back and is like, oh my God. Now, what happens for each individual woman is it looks different. So I have a very clear idea of who she is. Obviously, it's not very in my face today because I'm in the middle of doing various things before I go away on a trip. But essentially, she's very gothy. She looks a little, for the Harry Potter fans out there, she looks a little bit like she fell out of Malfoy Manor. She's got that kind of gothic feel to her. She's very powerful. And so that is presented in how I look. And then, but for somebody else I know, she has a bit more fun and a bit more joy about this thing. It's not quite so heavy and dark. And she actually she's got like space buns and dungarees and roller skates. But what it is ultimately is, what's that most powerful version of you?
Yes.
And it's unique to every woman. And it's like, what does that look like to you? And now we'll close the gap between who you are and who she invites you to be.
Yeah. I have a feeling she's part of the dark goddesses, and the dark goddesses, they're the ones
that's why it's got that gothy feel about it.
Yes, they're the ones that connect us to that deeper power, that raw potential, and the truth of who we really are. They kind of come in to help us to clear all that bullshit so that we can.
Well, this is it. When you talk about the dark goddess, depending on how you spin that story, it's either this is a dark thing. And I did have that experience recently where somebody looked at my stuff and went, this looks like kind of a dark world. And I was like, you do understand the whole point is to shine a light on that dark. And so on the individual, that's what is it that's in your way of being in the world that's stopping you stepping into that power? If you cleared all that out and you stepped in, who would you be?
Exactly.
And it just shines a light on it and says, right, these are all the pieces. Now, it's then your choice whether you keep saying yes to that. I have had people who've turned around and gone, thanks, that was interesting, and then start saying no. But yes, she keeps inviting you to say yes.
It can be a challenging place to be, saying yes. It takes courage. It really does. And it takes an aspect of faith, because most of the time
there is a leap of faith, because you're saying yes, but you don't always. I mean, I remember when I first, I've done an episode on it on my podcast, but when I first said yes, I saw the yes story, and I got presented with a choice, and it was like, how I navigate this choice matters. And then I saw a future version of myself. It was like in a meditation, I saw a future version. It was like, this is the woman who says yes. Now, I had no idea what the middle steps were.
Yeah.
But the future version of me, I was like, wow, she's amazing. I want some of that in my world. Now, if I'd known what was coming up, would I still do it? Yes, I totally would. However, at that point, it is a leap of faith.
Yeah. It's like we don't always know what
the middle steps are.
Yeah, what that is going to be, but we have to trust that it is for our highest and greatest good.
And the beautiful thing about it is Lilith is your guardian at that space. Every single choice, every single compound crossroads and yes that you take, she's there to guide it. She's there to support it.
Yeah. I love that. Wow. Whew. Okay. Yeah, she's.
She doesn't ignite a bomb and then run. She walks you through that process.
Exactly. Yeah. It's kind of like Kali is coming into, it's the same thing where she, she has the dark and the light side. The dark side is the warrior that comes in and help you, like, hey, get over this. Let's move through this. Let's cut the heads off anything that is not you, anything that is standing in your way. And then she can also go into the other part where she's more gentle and like what you would think of a goddess. But what I'm noticing, like for me, the way I work with the goddesses, I work with them as one. And the different goddesses are like emanations of the divine feminine. And so what I notice is that what all these goddesses that come in to work with us is that they're showing us, they're a reflection of who we are as women. Yes. That we are just as powerful as them. We are light, and we also have that raw power.
And that's where the invitation is, how you close the gap between who you start out as and who Lilith invites you to be, because she gets you in touch with that inner goddess in yourself. She gets you in touch with that version of you that's close to her. And jokes aside, we're actually having merchandise made that's like, what would Lilith do?
Yeah.
As a kind of reminder, you know, in this moment, what would Lilith do? And then I'll go and do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm also realizing that goddesses like Lilith, they like, if you're someone that who is being called to work with, like they're specific. That's what I'm trying to say. Like they call certain people, you know, they send those invitations to certain people, kind of like yours, how yours was. Yeah.
And it's whether or not you continue on that journey. Once you've had that touch of Lilith, if you like, it's will you continue that journey or not? And interesting, we've got, obviously, you mentioned my podcast, Lilith Speaks, but also I've just opened we're beginning the process of doing multi-author books and solo author books around divine feminine, sacred sexuality, all those beautiful things. And I've realized that one of the book titles, if you like, for the want of a better description, is The People to Whom Lilith Speaks.
Aha.
Like, for whom the bell tolls, well, the people to whom Lilith speaks. Because when she goes in and she's like, here it is. And I had somebody that I was coaching a few weeks back. I'm still coaching, I just haven't spoken to her in a while. Just to be clear, she didn't bail. But she said, I felt the energy of Lilith in my house. It was like she was suddenly there. And she knew it was a powerful energy. And it was like, she's come to me to say to me, like, you're on a crossroads, what are you going to do? And I said, yeah, that's what she does. That's how this works. And then, so Lilith had chosen her. It was like, Lilith had picked her out and gone, okay, let's talk. Let's see what we can do and what power we can bring you into.
Yeah, I love that so much because, you know, that's something I want to share, especially in this time, everything that is going on with the world around women and women power. Like I want this to be like an invitation to pay attention to which goddesses you're drawn to or which goddesses that come to you, because their codes are within you and you are being asked to activate those codes and step into your power. So draw them even closer right now. The more we get activated in who we really are, the quicker we can create the changes that we
that everybody needs, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And you know, that feminine power is not power over.
Exactly.
It is powerful, but it's not power over. And you know, she was seeking equality in the space, not a reverse patriarchy.
Exactly.
It has a whole other level to it. So yeah.
And I feel like Lilith has an idea, and I'm sure there are other goddesses that do too, but since she's the original woman, she definitely understands, or perhaps it's very interesting because how she's coming in right now, you know, like she's coming in to teach us about this cycle that we keep going through with women's rights in the US, you know, and all of that. And I'm like, she's becoming our teacher this time, you know, like, she experienced that at the very beginning.
Yes.
And she's coming in to teach us, okay, how can we bring balance? How can we find that balance? You know, and within ourselves, especially women, how can we find that balance and feel worthy of that power and being that powerful, right? So yeah, it's very interesting that that part was coming in.
And what I also find fascinating is the other people as they respond to her, the men who truly understand that power and revel in the divine feminine, whatever way, from whatever lifetime they've brought it from, they truly understand the divine feminine. They get it. They step up and they're like, wow, who is she? Where's she been all my lives? You know, they embrace that process. And yet there are, funny enough, when I was telling you about the television show that I originally saw her in, when that was broadcast, obviously there's people on the internet going, right, what did you think of it? Reviews, all that kind of reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time this character was introduced, we were in season 2 of the show in the UK. So it was already had a bit of a following, right? So the people that reacted to this character, they didn't like her. They really didn't know what to do with her. And the people who didn't like her the most were the women. Because it highlighted to them their inability to stand in that power. So the best thing to do is to vilify and demonize this character, which is exactly, if you go and read about the original goddess Lilith, is exactly what happened to Lilith. Exactly. All the stories of the after Eden stuff, none of it's pretty. And the reason none of it's pretty is because it's been vilified for a purpose, so that you never take that road. Well,
exactly.
We're here to change that.
Exactly. We're here to change that. Exactly. Oh man. Okay. So I don't want us to forget about, the important work that you do. And you already mentioned the aspect of the multi-author books, but you have 2 amazing books that you're currently inviting people to come in.
I do.
Step in that power and share their story. So tell us more about that.
So those 2 stories at the moment. So I'll be honest, Lilith has many titles. Yes. That's just going to be the way it is. However, right now, the 2 titles that we have that she wants us to kick off with, you see how I'm saying it in the third person, like I'm employed again. The titles that we're kicking off with are, one of them is called Sacred Sexuality, and how, with a sort of strapline of how working with the divine feminine has transformed your life. So that could be that you are somebody who is using sacred sexuality within your own life, within your own intimacy. Could be that you are a practitioner who is teaching others. Could be that you're a divine feminine practitioner, like yourself, it's weaved into your work. Either way, it's about what's your story, what's your experience. So it might be a specific goddess. It might be just in a general sense, in the way that you describe, they kind of blend. Equally, what I've also found is there's a couple of people where you go, oh, I know where I want that story to be. It's how we're changing the narrative for the generations below us that are coming up. And also maybe what we've done in our own journey with accepting ourselves and our own femininity is that we've not gone along with what social media say or what the press say or whatever. And actually we found our divinity within ourselves. So any of those sorts of things, any sorts of those, if you're sitting here listening to those questions and going, yeah, that's me, tick, that's me, then I want your story. Your story wants to be out into the world. I want that story in the world. And the second one is called Energetic Matches. And I've kept it deliberately loose in the sense that it's a story of, because Lilith was effectively the template for balanced relationships and equality in relationships right from the start. So the idea of energetic matches, and what I've seen over definitely the last year, but I would probably say the last 2 or 3 actually, is this wave of people demanding a different kind of relationship paradigm. And so, whether they're twin flames, whether they're soulmates, whether they're sacred unions, but people are looking at that wave and they are making different choices on those respective crossroads. And I want those stories in there. So whether you're somebody who has that story to tell, or whether you're someone who has consciously worked with your partner or partners to build that new paradigm, or maybe you're a relationship coach who does that, these are the stories I want to share with the world. So yeah, these are the 2 books we have at the moment that are looking for contributors. So please, if any of that feels like, oh, I have something to say on that subject. And when I've been speaking to people with the divine feminine one especially, it's almost like they have so much to say. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't have a chapter in me, I have a whole book. Well, get in touch as well, because I'm sure we can find a way to shape that. And we can start with the chapter with putting your toe in the water and then look after you through the journey.
I love that. So how do people apply or, get in touch with you if they would like to be in either of the books or both of the books?
Yes, you can do both. Don't feel you have to choose. So what we're doing is, my publisher is looking at, it's on her website. So it's tacassia.com/multi-author. And then it's just a case of selecting the book that feels like it resonates. And after that, we then connect with you and we talk you through that process. So if you're signing for a chapter, but actually you want to talk about all the other projects in your head and all the other ideas, that's fine. We'll have that conversation once you've gone, because it's about that crossroads. It's like, say yes to the crossroads. So it's tacassia.com/multi-author.
Beautiful. And I have the link above. So go ahead and click on it, check it out, and jump on it. I do these soul chats, especially with others who have multi-author books, other publishers, because it's a great opportunity for more people to share their stories, especially for people who are, who they say like they're not there yet to write a whole book. A multi-author book is such an easy way to start. Yeah. And open
it allows you to dip into the shallow end. And I think with the divine feminine piece, and the sacred sexuality piece, it's the things we remember deep in our bones or deep in our waters. And then it's like, these are the things that we've been allowed to forget. And one of the beautiful things, we are finding the alternatives in America and Canada and places, depending on where our writers are coming from. But in the UK, there is a legal requirement that they are then submitted to the National Archives. So here's the thing, where those messages have been lost over time, and this is a remembering that we are all going through, it will never be lost again, because it sits in the National Archives for the rest of time.
That's incredible.
That's your legacy. And I'm finding whenever my writers are signing up and saying yes and putting that stake in the ground for themselves, I'm finding out in their country what the equivalent is, because what happens is we buy a couple of copies and we send it to the archives to be kept. So actually there is a multi-archive access, and you will be dotted around the world for the rest of time.
Incredible. Yeah, I love the legacy part, that we get to create, that the generations ahead of us will get to read this. Like, I had a vision when I started my publishing house of my great grandchildren, like, look at what my grandmother did or my great grandmother did, and them reading the stories and feeling empowered, but also learning about our own journey in the past, and giving them different options of living, that it's not linear, it's not black or white. There's so much to us, and it just got me so excited about these projects and the publishing house and what we're creating and dropping into the world. So well done for saying yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, now I invite you, and I invite those who feel called to contribute, to also say yes. Because then, and the way that Camilla, who is Camilla Fellis-Arnold, who I work with as part of the Circassia, her publishing house is hers.
Yes.
She's a creativity and writing coach. So if you're worried about how will I get my pen started, that's me. I got tools for that. We'll support you and take you on that journey.
Yes.
And if you're worried about, well, how do I make my writing good? She's got that side. Because the beautiful thing is, you don't know where you're going to start. And sometimes these books never make it into the world and they die an unnatural death, because being supported, because who you start out as a writer and who you end up, the chapter that finally makes the edit, it's a very different journey. And we decided as a conscious choice, we were not going to do it by application, as it were, like if you're good enough, then we'll talk to you. It was, let's take you as you are and help you elevate as you go on this journey with us.
That's powerful.
So you don't have to worry about whether you think it's any good, whether it's sitting around in notepads, whether it's on the back of envelopes. Don't worry about that. We'll take all that and we'll put the mosaic together with you. Because It's more important that this work is out there than it looks perfect.
Exactly. I love that. Beautiful. Well, Emily, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon and sharing the wisdom of this powerful goddess Lilith, and also your contribution to one of the many contributions to the world, and the invitations that you're offering other women to step up and say yes, and showing how powerful it is to say yes in your life. And yes, it does require faith and courage, but it is so worth it.
So worth it. So worth it. As you see the things manifest in the world, these were seemingly impossible, and here we are.
Exactly.
Yeah, really powerful things.
Oh,
thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
It is my pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. If you have any questions about how to join either or both of her multi-author books, or to find out ways that you can work with Emily, the link is above. You can send her a message on Facebook, on LinkedIn. You're on LinkedIn as well.
I'm very on the LinkedIn as well. Yeah.
So find her and just chat with her. Don't be nervous. We're in a very powerful time, and these opportunities that we bring to you is not just, oh, here you go, this is another thing you can do. There's a purpose, and this purpose continues to reveal itself in this time, especially the opportunities that are coming in for women. So you step in and you share your story very powerfully, and be held by the community of other powerful women that get to travel with you, both spiritually and physically. Seriously, like, it would change your life. So let's do this.
Beautifully put. Thank you, Abigail.
My pleasure. Bye, everyone.